On April 20th, 2010, a tragedy unfolded in the Gulf of Mexico. It was a day that would forever change the lives of many and leave an indelible mark on the environment. The Deepwater Horizon, an oil rig operated by BP, was drilling a deep-sea well known as the Macondo Prospect. This well was located approximately 41 miles off the coast of Louisiana, in waters over 5,000 feet deep. Suddenly, there was a massive explosion. The rig was engulfed in flames and chaos ensued as workers scrambled to evacuate and save their lives. The blast killed 11 workers and injured many more. The survivors were left traumatized and the families of the deceased were devastated by the loss of their loved ones. This disaster marked the beginning of a terrible environmental crisis. The explosion caused a blowout, leading to an uncontrolled release of oil from the well. The explosion caused a massive oil spill. Oil gushed out from the well at an alarming rate, creating a slick that spread rapidly across the Gulf's waters. Oil gushed out from the well for 87 long days. During this time, millions of barrels of oil were released into the ocean, causing widespread devastation. It was a desperate fight to stop the leak. Engineers and scientists worked tirelessly to find a solution, employing various methods to contain and cap the well. Finally, on July 15, 2010, the well was capped. This marked the end of the immediate crisis, but the long-term effects were just beginning to be understood. But the damage was already done. The oil had spread far and wide, contaminating vast areas of the Gulf and its coastline. Millions of barrels of oil had poured into the Gulf's waters. The spill created a massive slick that covered thousands of square miles, affecting everything in its path. The Deepwater Horizon oil spill was the largest in U.S. history. It surpassed previous spills in both volume and impact, becoming a grim benchmark for environmental disasters. It had a devastating impact on the environment and the economy. Marine life suffered immensely, with countless fish, birds, and other wildlife perishing in the contaminated waters. The spill affected marine life, coastal communities, and the entire Gulf ecosystem. Coral reefs were damaged and beaches were deserted as the oil washed ashore. It was a stark reminder of the risks involved in offshore drilling. The disaster underscored the potential for catastrophic consequences when things go wrong in such a high-stakes industry. The disaster also highlighted the need for better safety measures and stronger environmental regulations. It sparked a global conversation about the future of offshore drilling and the importance of protecting our oceans. The world watched in horror as the oil spread, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. News coverage brought the grim reality of the spill into homes around the globe, raising awareness and prompting calls for action. The Deepwater Horizon disaster became a turning point in the way we view our relationship with the ocean and the need to protect it. It served as a sobering reminder of the fragility of our environment and the urgent need for sustainable practices. The Deepwater Horizon was a marvel of engineering. It stood as a testament to human ingenuity and the relentless pursuit of energy resources. This colossal structure was not just a rig, it was a floating city, equipped with the latest technology and manned by a dedicated crew. This massive rig was designed to drill for oil in extremely deep water. It was capable of reaching depths that were previously thought to be unattainable, pushing the boundaries of what was possible in offshore drilling. It floated above the Macondo well, located almost a mile beneath the surface. The Macondo well was a significant find, promising vast quantities of oil that could fuel economies and industries for years to come. The well tapped into a huge reservoir of oil, but it was also under immense pressure. This pressure was both a blessing and a curse. While it meant that the oil could be extracted more easily, it also posed significant risks, if not managed correctly. On that fateful day, a series of failures led to the catastrophe. It was a perfect storm of mechanical failures, human errors, and unforeseen circumstances that culminated in one of the worst disasters in the history of offshore drilling. Gas from the well surged up the drilling pipe. This was a critical moment. The gas, under immense pressure, found its way to the surface, bypassing the safety mechanisms that were supposed to contain it. It ignited on the platform, causing the deadly explosion. The ignition was almost instantaneous, turning the rig into a fiery inferno within seconds. The force of the blast was enormous. It tore through the rig, causing widespread destruction and chaos. The crew, caught off guard, scrambled to respond to the unfolding disaster. It shook the rig and sent shockwaves through the surrounding water. The underwater disturbance was so powerful that it was felt miles away, a testament to the sheer force of the explosion. The fire raged out of control, engulfing the platform. The flames, fed by the continuous flow of gas and oil, reached towering heights, making it nearly impossible to approach the rig. Rescue crews searched desperately for survivors. The brave men and women risked their lives, navigating through the smoke and flames, hoping to find any signs of life amidst the wreckage. But the inferno and the vastness of the ocean made the task incredibly difficult. The conditions were harrowing, with the heat from the fire and the treacherous waters complicating the rescue efforts. The Deepwater Horizon burned for days before finally sinking beneath the waves. The sight of the rig disappearing into the ocean was a somber reminder of the disaster's magnitude. The sinking of the rig was just the beginning of the disaster. The true extent of the catastrophe was yet to unfold as the damaged wellhead continued to pose a significant threat. With the wellhead damaged, oil and gas began spewing into the Gulf. The uncontrolled flow of hydrocarbons created an environmental crisis that would have long-lasting effects on the region. The flow rate was staggering, thousands of barrels per day. Efforts to contain the spill were met with numerous challenges, as the sheer volume of oil overwhelmed the response teams. It quickly became clear that this was not a minor spill, it was an environmental catastrophe of unprecedented scale. The spill affected marine life, coastal ecosystems, and local communities, leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. The long-term impact of the disaster would be felt for years, as efforts to clean up and restore the affected areas continued. Oil is lighter than water. This fundamental property means that when oil is introduced into a body of water, it will naturally rise to the surface. This is why, in the event of an oil spill, the oil doesn't just mix with the water, but instead forms a distinct layer on top. When it spills into the ocean, it forms a thin layer on the surface. This layer, often referred to as an oil slick, can be deceptively thin yet incredibly widespread. The slick can cover vast areas of the ocean, creating a visible sheen that stretches for miles. This layer, called an oil slick, spreads rapidly with the wind and currents. The movement of the water, driven by natural forces such as tides, waves, and wind, causes the oil to disperse quickly. Within hours, what might have started as a localized spill can transform into a sprawling environmental disaster. In the case of the Deepwater Horizon spill, the slick grew to an enormous size. The disaster, which began with an explosion on the offshore drilling rig, resulted in millions of barrels of oil being released into the Gulf of Mexico. The sheer volume of oil meant that the slick expanded rapidly, covering an area that was almost unimaginable in scale. The oil slick from the Deepwater Horizon covered thousands of square miles. Satellite images captured the extent of the spill, showing a dark, ominous stain spreading across the blue waters of the Gulf. The slick was so vast that it could be seen from space, a stark reminder of the magnitude of the disaster. It stretched from the Louisiana coast to the Florida panhandle. The oil didn't just stay in the open ocean. It was carried by currents and winds towards the shore, threatening a wide swath of coastline. Communities along the Gulf Coast braced for impact, knowing that the oil would bring with it a host of environmental and economic challenges. This vast expanse of oil posed a grave threat to marine life and coastal ecosystems. The Gulf of Mexico is home to a rich diversity of marine species, from tiny plankton to large marine mammals. The oil slick disrupted the delicate balance of this ecosystem, endangering countless species. The oil slick acted like a suffocating blanket on the water's surface. It blocked sunlight from penetrating the water, disrupting the photosynthesis process for marine plants and phytoplankton. These organisms form the base of the marine food web, and their decline had ripple effects throughout the ecosystem. It prevented oxygen from dissolving into the water, making it difficult for marine organisms to breathe. Fish and other aquatic animals rely on dissolved oxygen to survive. The oil slick created hypoxic conditions, where oxygen levels in the water dropped to dangerously low levels, leading to the suffocation of marine life. Birds that landed on the slick became coated in oil, damaging their feathers and making it impossible for them to fly or stay warm. The oil compromised the insulating properties of their feathers, leaving them vulnerable to hypothermia. Many birds ingested the oil while trying to clean themselves, leading to internal damage and poisoning. As the slick drifted towards the shore, it threatened delicate coastal habitats. The Gulf Coast is lined with marshes, estuaries, and mangroves, which serve as crucial breeding and feeding grounds for a variety of species. The arrival of the oil posed a direct threat to these sensitive environments. Marshes, beaches, and estuaries, all vital nurseries for fish and birds, were at risk of being inundated with oil. These areas are not only important for wildlife but also for the local communities that depend on them for fishing, tourism, and recreation. The oil spill jeopardized both the natural environment and the livelihoods of those who live along the coast. The sight of the approaching slick filled coastal communities with dread. Residents watched helplessly as the oil crept closer, knowing that their homes, businesses, and way of life were under threat. The spill brought a sense of urgency and a call to action as people rallied to protect their shores and mitigate the damage. The visible effects of the Deepwater Horizon spill were shocking, but some of the most devastating impacts happened beneath the surface, hidden from view. Oil contains toxic chemicals that are harmful to marine life. These chemicals can poison fish, shellfish, and other marine organisms. One of the biggest concerns was the impact on plankton. These tiny organisms form the base of the marine food web. If plankton populations are affected, the entire ecosystem can be thrown out of balance. Fish and other animals that depend on plankton for food can suffer population declines. Oil spills can also damage sensitive habitats like coral reefs and deep-sea ecosystems. These habitats are home to a wide variety of species, many of which are slow-growing and vulnerable to disturbance. The long-term ecological consequences of the Deepwater Horizon spill are still being studied.